How many of you have been asked to redo the sales deck, launch some new AI-enabled product with maybe zero context given? Already seen some hands go up. Or kind of just rejig your positioning based on vibes all in 1 week? Yes, okay, so you are not actually at PMM Summit London. You have been lured into a recovery support group for product marketers. So I will go first. My name is Alicia Carney, and I too am a product marketer. I have been doing this for 14 years, despite no one 100% understanding what we do or why we do it, but I love our craft, and I know you do too, and that's why we're here today. So I was going to talk about archetypes. That is the theme of our conference here today and tomorrow. But you are going to hear a lot about archetypes over the next few days. And so what's actually more important to me is grounding you in tapping into why you're excited to be here. What is your edge? What inspires you to do your best work? Because, like Olga said, this is not a personality test. Archetypes are not fixed because our role is not fixed. The role changes based on the type of company. Is it sales-led? Is it PLG? Is it early-stage startup? Is it a scale-up? Is it global? What's going on in the context of your business? It all requires a different set of skills and mindset. And yet, I think as product marketers, we are particularly vulnerable to feeling like we have to do all of it and be everyone for everything all the time. And so I've felt that in the past myself, like I'm working so hard and yet it's not enough. But I know as well that the best product marketers, they don't try to be everything for everyone. They know what they're great at and they double down on it. And that is truly the only sustainable path forward to build a career that you're really proud of. So first, let's start off with kind of unpacking why we might be feeling the pressure to be everything for everyone. Clicker. Cool. Sometimes I open my phone and I go on LinkedIn, the vortex of PMM updates, which I know I contribute to, and I feel like the ground is shifting beneath my feet, like there is a quicksand of changing and shifting expectations. Why? Our good friend, AI. Did you know we're all supposed to be AI native yesterday? Have you all built your custom messaging GPTs yet? We're still figuring out what this means, and yet the line is changing of what is expected of us here right now. It's also a crazy market. There's a lot of volatility happening, and we have to kind of survive that, not only in the context of our tech industry bubble, but also, like, have you seen the news lately? Like, there are crazy headlines that contextualize the volatility of the tech industry right now. And we're all kind of supposed to just go to Pret in the morning and get a coffee and pretend this isn't 100% happening. And that weighs on us. That is a pressure that I carry, at least. And also budget cuts. You need to be doing more with less, but steer clear of burnout, and definitely do not think about the layoffs that you might have just gone through. You have to keep moving forward. As product marketers, you need to prove your worth. Always be tying your work through to impact, commercial, whether it's improving the sales cycle, improving your win rate, whatever that is. You also need to be strategic. You also need to be fast. Always be executing. Strategy is not enough. You have to be data-led. You have to be technical. You must be commercial, have very good commercial acumen, and do not ever forget to be customer obsessed. It is just a total era of constant disruption and change. And PMMs are being asked to be everything, everywhere, all at once. Chances are there is someone out there who thinks that you own, in your company, thinks that you own positioning, messaging, go-to-market strategy, product adoption, product influence, roadmap influence, win rate, pipeline. It's too much. And so when PMMs come to me feeling flattened by these expectations, the advice that I give is to know what drives you and what motivates you as a person, and to protect that and double down on it. So that's what we're going to talk about here today. So as product marketers, we help our companies go from being something for everyone to the thing for someone. We are obsessing over positioning for other people's companies. So what I want to ask you today is to flip that question back to you and ask yourself, what is your edge? What is your thing? How do you think about like the best moments where you love your job? What is happening there? How do we make you stand out in a sea of expectations that will pull you in a million different directions? Confidence doesn't come from being the loudest voice in the room, despite what Americans like me would like you to believe. It comes from knowing what energizes you and owning it. Your edge is a combination of your natural strengths and the moments that you're creating undeniable momentum in your business. So let's take a step back and think about your strengths. Your strengths are not just your professional skill set, your jobs to be done in product marketing language. Your strengths are an intersection of many different things, of tapping into who you are as a person. There's this concept, is anyone familiar with this? Ikigai, yes, yay, okay, cool. It's this intersection between what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. And it's about, I think the definition is like a reason for being. And much earlier in my career, before I kind of knew that product marketing was a thing, I think most people kind of fall into it, I realized that this particular niche space taps into all these things for me. I love the psychology and getting people to kind of open up and say what they're really thinking and feeling beneath that surface level. We can be paid for it. I have some examples of how I think I might be good at it. This taps into a more balanced approach that I can carry with me into my work versus just showing up to do a particular job. So have a think about what's your intersection across these 4 different areas, and that's how we can start to lean into your edge. Think about, when do you feel the most alive in your work, where you are absolutely buzzing and you're like, I'm on to something. I know this is right. What do people come to you for, with you, whether you have to ask for that or not? Maybe you're a really good listener and you can just actively hear people and their problems. Or maybe you're a problem solver and you go straight into solution mode. Maybe there's a time and a place for either of those. And maybe you are the life of the party because you know how to speak many different languages of many different types of people, and you can make them all feel good and safe. Those are huge skills. And think about, when have you created undeniable momentum where you know that if you were not involved in a particular project or a launch or a conversation, that outcome would not have happened? And lastly, what projects do you lose time in? I regularly will start working on something at 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon and just go straight until 3 in the morning. And if I'm locked in, if I'm really tapping into that intersection, I might be physically exhausted by the end of it, but my brain is still alive. And the answers to all these questions are clues from yourself on what you're supposed to be doing and how you define your edge. So I'd like to introduce you to the PMM Edge framework. And there's three steps here to help you identify and shape that. So first, you want to find it. You want to find the zone of energy and insight and value that only you bring. And I'll talk through an example of this just after. Then you'll want to assert it by proving that it can drive a strategic or a commercial outcome. And lastly, you'll want to scale it using systems and allies and tools, including AI, to amplify those results. So first, I would like to talk through an example of how I tapped into my edge at Deliveroo. I joined Deliveroo a long time ago, in 2018, to launch their restaurant ad platform. So, you know when you open the consumer app and you scroll through and you get an offer with like 20% off or a free item? That was my life for a long time. Is anyone here from Deliveroo? Okay, great. That's going to make this a much more comfortable thing to share. So I was handed, actually before my first day, a 20-page Amazon-style thesis on why this ad platform was going to be beneficial for Deliveroo commercially. Please no one tell anyone that I'm telling you this. And it was all very sophisticated and complex and interesting, and I was excited about the opportunity. But what I quickly learned is that product marketing had a bit of a bad rap historically. There was no exec sponsor, there was no budget, there was no buy-in. In fact, it felt like I was coming in with some negative sentiment and fractured trust across the business. We were, at the time, operating across 14 global markets through Asia Pacific and Europe and the Middle East. We were seen as deck builders and internal comms and project management. And it wasn't even just the internal sentiment that was like no bueno, it was also with restaurants themselves. Again, long time ago, but we had a negative restaurant satisfaction score, which means restaurants were not having a good time and they weren't getting the value out of the platform that they deserve to get because they're a critical part there. And so I came into this thesis and there was so many mounting expectations that I started learning. I was expected to kind of actualize a short-term injection of revenue. I was expected to make this grow our orders exponentially, so growth and revenue at the same time. They wanted me to monetize the long tail of restaurants, but also make sure that McDonald's is using it, and make sure that every single restaurant segment across all those 14 markets were going to use this tool. It was just supposed to be this kind of silver bullet commercially. And there were so many mounting expectations that, I mean, again, I was brand new to this company and I couldn't see the forest for the trees and understand who is this thing even best fit for in the first place. And so instead of deploying a top-down strategy, I had to come back to my edge and build my own instincts. And so I sat down with restaurants, from small mom-and-pop restaurants in Singapore and Taiwan to big group global chains in Dubai and Kuwait, and I even got to sit physically in the restaurant with local chains here in London and in Milan, and their reality shocked me. Some restaurants were making choices every week about whether or not they stock ketchup or mustard because their margins were so thin. Some restaurants were not interested in growing. They didn't want to double their site location count overnight. On the other end of the spectrum, some larger restaurants they were years ahead of us. They had already built their own sophisticated marketing tooling and they weren't really interested in testing our MVP. But suddenly it clicked for me. I saw so many smart people in Deliveroo, people with degrees in computational physics and data science and machine learning who are probably having a great time with the AI wave right now. And it was often very intimidating for me. But despite all of the knowledge, no one had stopped to say, who are we actually building for and why? And so I reached my own conclusion that the ICP for this ad platform was a restaurant who wanted to grow. And that helped to narrow down my playing field in a big pool of 100,000 restaurant partners. And so I went back to my product manager and I said, the ICP is a restaurant who wants to grow and they expect this thing to deliver one thing, growth. And not to be taken for granted, she listened to me. I know. And that's why she got invited to my wedding. And so we delayed the launch. But again, I'm 2 weeks into a brand new fancy job coming from early stage startups. And we delayed the launch and that was scary. And we built an automated email that would send to restaurants at the end of their offer that would tell them how many orders they made, how many of those customers were new to their business. And then we'd also aggregate together insights based on what we knew was working well to give them advice on how to do better next time. And that paid off. We launched our MVP with a 70% repeat rate. So that means 70% of restaurants were coming back to create an additional offer within, I think it was like 30 or 60 days. I now know that's called a growth loop. At the time, didn't know that. And the restaurants who were our earliest detractors, who were like, why are you building percentage discount offers? We can't afford this. They became our first case studies. And I actually checked the Deliveroo restaurant website recently, and some of those first quotes are still on the website, which is quite cool. And again, that was just the restaurant experience. The other side of it was internally. Like, I took so much heat from our local teams who felt dejected, dismissed, not understood. And I would be lying if I said that didn't trigger a bit of like a defensive response from me. Like, I didn't choose to build this, I just got here. But I had to really lean into my edge and accept the feedback, accept the hard feedback. And in my mind, I kept visualizing me and the local teams sitting on one side of the table and the problem of marketer adoption on the other. And that really helped me get to the root of, okay, I can understand they're being airdropped this product and they have a KPI on their head to drive orders through this. They've had no say in what we're building. And so to get things off the ground and to turn around that negative sentiment, I did a lot of unscalable things. I launched monthly office hours calls, one per market, to establish a direct line of communication with every single team. I genuinely lost my voice sometimes, having to repeat my same stories, but it was really important to me that those connections were real. I set up Slack channels, one per market, and then all of a sudden we had these feedback loops and people who were actually invested in telling us the truth. And I think that comes from a foundation of like a relationship that was built there. I also was seeing those teams getting dismissed by our central product teams. You're like, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. They're whatever. But I was able to take that disparate, kind of noisy feedback and synthesize it to something that was unignorable. So I created something called the Voice of the Stakeholder Survey. And one time I distributed my survey and we asked if we could build one thing to unlock adoption with our ICP, a restaurant who wants to grow, what would you want us to build? And lo and behold, 56% of stakeholders across those 14 markets agreed this one thing would unlock adoption. And sure enough, we built it, and with zero marketing budget and zero actually marketing effort, we got an additional 20% of adoption almost immediately. And that is why you can get a single menu item discount versus the full menu. Yay. And so it just helps so much to feel that we were co-creating together. And this, I believe, comes from my edge, my ability to try and see people for where they are and bring them into the problem solving together versus just talking at them. One of my biggest things that I'm most proud of in my career was actually the pricing strategy for marketer. I'm not one of those people with a degree in data science at all. And so, again, I came into this context of the business with an expectation to drive incremental revenue as quickly as possible. And to be totally honest with you, I drafted that pricing strategy twice following that pressure. And it didn't feel good. And I kept doing it over and over again, and I sat down with a real data scientist and mapped out what would the commercials look like if we did a flat fee or a subscription or commission on the original order amount or the discounted order. Like, we did everything. But it was misaligned with the instincts that I had built talking to restaurants. And so, despite like a lot of tears around the office and like struggling with this, I threw that strategy away. I threw away the proposal and I redid it in alignment with my edge and advocating for the customer. And that's something that I really admire about product marketers, is that you have to tap into courage to go against the status quo and to say, this is not right. Because very often you are the person thinking about that and no one else is. So I brought in the raw quotes from the restaurant's realities and their real experience. I quantified their sentiment with a tool called Chattermill to show we really can't afford to piss these restaurants off very much anymore. And I mapped it through to the business case and said, if we can't create the offer supply that we need to get this off the ground, we are sacrificing a better consumer experience at the end of the day, because it was such a consumer-led business. And the outcome was I reversed all the senior executives' opinions on what we should do, and still to this day, pricing is in the best interest of restaurants and keeps more money in their pockets. I'm really proud of that. So here's our little success story. The black line shows the kind of before and after of the launch period, so everything to the left, end of 2018 is when we launched it, 1 market at a time, 14 markets in a row, and I remember thinking, if I can just get through this, I'll be okay. And each of those peaks on the right-hand side represents a local marketing campaign. I was executing and building offer supply through those local marketing teams that I had built relationships with. So with 0 marketing budget and a 70% offer repeat rate from restaurants, we were able to generate 1 million incremental orders within the first 12 months of launch. And still to this day, Marketer has grown into a business unit in its own. And going back to the EDGE framework, I know that we would not have reached this outcome if I hadn't been a part of this project and tapping into my edge, my interest and compulsion to exercise empathy and to see people and to bring them into the process. Oops. Next. I want you all to gaze at my, there we go, okay, my success stories. No, just kidding. Okay, so last year, I saw Emma Stratton, one of my heroes, give a talk at PMM Summit London, and she was talking about buyer messaging and how we make messaging more human, exactly like our wonderful exercise that we did this morning. And someone was in the audience and they said, but how do you quantify the impact of your messaging? And she stood here and she was like, I don't. And I was like, girl, yeah, I feel validated. And of course, yeah, we have to make sure that we are tying our work to commercial outcomes, to accelerated deal cycles, to improved win rates, to lifetime value, to stronger product adoption. That's just the nature of the beast. But sometimes impact also looks like an AE using your messaging framework because they know it'll help them close faster. Or buyers repeating your messaging back to you because they think it's their idea and you're occupying space in their mind. Or teams shifting their plans based on an insight that you bring, like the audacity, and that's what happened to me at Deliveroo. All of these moments are not only important for driving commercial impact, maybe directly or indirectly, but for more importantly, building confidence and cementing that your edge is uniquely yours. When I moved to London from San Francisco in 2016, I joined a small startup called Kayako, RIP, as their second product marketer. Their first product marketer was someone called James Doman-Pipe. Does anyone know James? A couple? One? Yeah, okay, cool. James is logic and data and structure and rational thinking, sometimes, dare I say, a bit black and white thinking, and I am not. I am feeling and emotion and intuition and what's the gray area and what does this mean? And needless to say, we really clashed when we first worked together. And after doing pretty much every personality test under the sun and trying to understand each other and trying to understand how to have a relationship, we realized we had complementary edges. And once we realized that we were not in competition with one another, everything opened up and now we partner together and we've actually created a system around our edges that helps us do better work. I sense check everything. How would your brain approach this problem, this message, this thing? And he does the same for me. And it makes me feel more valued because I'm like, I have something that I can bring here and I don't have to try and be him. Speaking of competition, let's talk about AI very quickly. I'm using AI. You're using AI, ChatGPT, Claude, they're our friends for now. one of my favorite things to do as a product marketer is to interview customers, again, get under the lid, get past the small talk, and what are we really talking about here? In the olden days, we would have to map out the pain points, the aspirations, the gains that they want to achieve, the jobs to be done, tediously going interview by interview. And now that can be done in seconds using Grain and Gong and Claude. They can tag and analyze and find every conversation over the past 18 months where this particular objection has been mentioned. Am I sad that I don't have to do that anymore? Like, no, that's cool. And the reality is that AI will take maybe even up to 60% of that tedium away from us. But there is a 40% that AI will never replace, and that is that you care, and I care. We care about the customer, we care about the outcome. AI can't replace your edge because it can't sense when the sales team isn't quite bought in on the messaging you're putting forward and it needs another iteration. AI can't take a founder from talking about features in some meandering story to a value-led, consistent narrative through training and enablement and the right programs. It can't contextualize customer feedback within the user experience that it's come from. It can't experience what it's like to navigate your software. And so again, I'm saying AI is rapidly changing everything, but you are not in competition with it. And that's why it's so important to think about AI as a part of your cockpit. And I hope no one here is from Disney. Don't sue me for using Disney imagery. But AI is a tool amongst many other tools that you have available to amplify and scale your edge versus something that is coming for you. So just a few more slides here. I've got 2 more minutes. There we go. How many of you have spent maybe a chunk of your career trying to be the product marketer that your company needs versus the product marketer that you truly are? I have spent a bit of mine chasing the expectations of others. So over the next few days, again, you're going to hear a lot about frameworks and playbooks and advice on how to grow your product marketing career. And you're going to hear a lot about archetypes. And you might identify with more than one. And you might go through seasons of them. But they are not boxes. I think they're mirrors to help you reflect and understand who you actually are and how you stay anchored to that as you grow in the context of your career. So I want you to invest and assert and protect your edge with the right systems and tools and peers and community that helps you do your best work in the trajectory of your life. So just to close things out, I think with so much focus on automation and AI, again, I've been doing this job since 2012, so quite a long time. And sometimes I open LinkedIn and I'm like, is there a place for me here? Do I belong here anymore? And having conversations with a few PMMs over the last few weeks, I actually know now that I'm not alone. And I have realized that yes, more than ever, there is room for art and empathy and humanity and curiosity in product marketing, actually in marketing overall. And I think now more than ever, with so much being automated, there is a real craving for human experience and that rawness, that ugly insight, the real language, getting underneath the surface. And as product marketers, we are in a really unique place where we can be a conduit for bringing that forward. So do not compete with the robots. In fact, they are here to work for you and the human stories that you can tell. I think that's pretty much it. I believe that the future of product marketing belongs to the ones who know who they are and why that matters. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how you all grow. Thank you.
Like this video? We've got loads more on demand. To access all previous event recordings, become a member. When you join, you also get access to more resources, templates, and inspiration from other leaders and PMMs. If you do want to catch us live, though, why not join us at our next event? Simply head to the link in the description to see where we're headed. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.